Good morning and welcome to our online webinar on resilience through mindfulness, and this is part 3 on compassion. So my name is Sarah Haffenden and I'm the Marketing Communications Manager at UKZN Extended Learning, also known as UEL. So in case you're unfamiliar with UEL, we are the continuing education unit of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and we offer all the short courses on behalf of the university. So we are offering these webinars as we are on full support and compliance with the directive of the national lockdown issued to address the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have embraced the changes and have launched a number of projects aimed at providing free access to learning materials during this lockdown. So one of these projects is our online learning webinars. So this webinar forms part of a 4-part Resilience Through Mindfulness series. And in case you missed the first 2, they are available on our website. But our webinars will continue throughout June on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But please take a look at our final slide at the end of the webinar for further details on upcoming webinars, or you can visit our website, www.ukznextendedlearning.com. So in terms of the format for today, we'll go through the presentation, and you're welcome to ask any questions in the Q&A box or raise your hand, and all these questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. So I'd now like to introduce you to our guest speakers for today, Julie Elliott and Liz Witherspoon. Julie and Liz have been involved in personal development for the past 15 years. They are life coaches, mindfulness teachers, and they facilitate on various programs for UEL, specializing in personal mastery, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness for leaders. They have a postgraduate certificate from Stellenbosch University in mindfulness-based interventions and have been running the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program since 2016. They have been coaching leaders, managers, and emerging managers on UEL's SLDP, MDP, and EMP programs for the past 6 years. So welcome to Julie and Liz, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Thank you also to UKZN Extended Learning for inviting Julie and I to run this webinar. Welcome back to those of you who were with us last week, and welcome to any new participants who may be joining us for the first time. We hope that you are finding the webinars helpful in supporting you to build your inner resilience. So before we begin, we will take a moment to direct our attention to be here, as we've done in the previous webinars, taking just a few minutes to ensure that we are fully present, both physically, which of course we are, but also mentally. So this is a grounding exercise that you can use anytime that your mind feels distracted and you're wanting to be focused and engaged with what you're doing. So when meditating, your posture or how you are sitting is part of the intention of meditation, which is to wake up, to be fully present here and now in the present moment. So we invite you to sit upright in your chair or on a cushion on the floor. And if it's possible, to bring your back a little away from the back of the chair so that your spine is self-supporting. Your feet can be flat on the floor, legs uncrossed, and your eyes open or closed. If they're open, to just lower your gaze and have a soft gaze. And then focus your attention on your breath as it flows in and out of your body. Stay in touch with the different sensations of each in-breath and each out-breath, observing the breath without changing it in any way. You may find it helpful to choose an anchor point or a place where you notice the breath most vividly to help you stay connected with your breath. Some people feel the breath at the nostrils, perhaps noticing the coolness of the air as it enters the nose and the warmth as it leaves on an exhale. Or you may be aware of the rise and fall of the breath in your chest or at your belly. Or you may choose to follow the journey of the breath from the nostrils down to the belly and out again through the nose or the mouth. Wherever you choose to place your attention, keeping it here for a few breaths. After a while, your mind may wander. When you notice this, gently bring your attention back to your breath without giving yourself a hard time. The act of realizing that your mind has wandered and bringing your attention back without criticizing yourself is central to the practice of mindfulness meditation. After a few more breaths, I'm going to ring a gong and then invite you to listen to the sound until you can no longer hear it, and then to open your eyes or lift your gaze. Thank you. So to recap from last week, we focused on stress and what stress is, and Julie took you through the definition of stress as well as what is happening in the brain when we're exposed to chronic stress, and then the consequences of long-term stress over a long period of time. She also introduced you to the concept of the second arrow, which invites us to become aware of the ways that we add suffering through the thoughts that we have about whatever stressful events we are experiencing. She then suggested ways to cope with the fight-flight stress response, and these were to breathe, which we've spoken about quite a bit, to bring awareness or mindfulness to the situation, to acknowledge what is happening in your body, in your thoughts, and in your emotions, to notice whether you are shooting the second arrow, and finally to build the capacity to be mindful through having a daily mindfulness meditation practice. I then introduced you to two tools, the belly breathing exercise, which is a powerful way of managing high anxiety, and the 5 senses meditation. And we encouraged you to also continue with week 2 of the Frantic World app in order to build your daily mindfulness practice. So this week we're going to focus on compassion, which is one of the key factors in mindfulness, and something that we found to be one of the biggest challenges for most people when first learning about mindfulness. But before I hand over to Julie, we'd like to invite you to give us some feedback in the chat box now. So if you were able to incorporate any of the mindfulness practices or tools that we've introduced you to over the last few weeks. So we're going to pause just for a few minutes to give you some time to note any comments or any feedback that you'd like to share in the chat box. And if there's anyone who would like to give us feedback live, we invite you to raise your hand. And in the interest of time, we will just choose 1 or 2 people. Sarah's going to manage that for us, to share your experience with us if you'd like to do that now. So for anyone who's not sure, the chat box is at the bottom of your screen, and you would just click on that and then type any feedback that you would like to give us into the chat box, and then I'll read those comments out to everyone. So Helen is saying that she didn't make it to the preceding webinars. What is your app called? I do not find Frantic World app in Google Store. It will be in the App Store, Helen. You're welcome to make contact with us at the end of the webinar, and we can help you with that. From Colleen, she says she's found the breathing exercise useful, completed 5 days of a mindfulness app and found them hugely beneficial in creating restful mindset. Well done, Colleen. We're really pleased to hear that the breathing and the mindfulness app have been helpful for you. Nikki says, thank you for introducing me to the belly breathing technique. It's so useful when trying to fall asleep. Thanks for that, Nikki. Very helpful to focus on the breath if you are struggling to sleep or you struggle with insomnia. It's a great way to bring you into the present moment and to relax that sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, as Jules chatted to us about last time. If anyone would like to feedback live, please also raise your hands. Jules, did you want to comment? So Helen says she finds that the breathing often wakes her up. So something very interesting about the breath is that it can be used both to energize us, so we can take a breath to get us into the moment and get us energized, but we can also use the breath to calm us down. And there are different breathing techniques that you can connect with. Renee says she shared with her friend the benefits of the belly breathing. That's wonderful. Thanks, Renee. So if nobody wants to give some live feedback, I'm going to hand over now to Jules to chat to us about compassion, what it is, and how you can cultivate your compassion, both for yourself and for others. Thanks, Jules.
Great, thank you, Liz, and welcome everyone. What wonderful feedback. I just encourage you to continue with that. So there are two aspects to training in mindfulness: the technique and the attitude. The technique consists of focusing your full attention on your breath as it flows in and out of your body. So focusing on each breath in this way allows you to observe your thoughts as they arise in your mind, and little by little to let go of struggling with them. So thoughts come and go of their own accord. You're not your thoughts. You can watch them appear and then disappear. Thoughts and feelings, including negative ones, are transient. They come and they go, and ultimately you have a choice whether to act on them or not. So mindfulness shows you that you're able to catch negative thought patterns. It allows you to do this before they trip you into a downward spiral. The second aspect is attitude. The attitude we try to bring to every part of our experience is one of kindly curiosity, with a willingness to stay present and open to whatever arises. So attitude is also how we bring our mind back when it wanders off when we're meditating. So what inner tone are we using when we speak to ourselves and guide the active mind back to our breath? Are you using the following 11 attitudes of mindfulness, which were illustrated in our tree analogy that Liz shared with you in part 1? So as you can see at the bottom there in the roots, which we believe are the roots and the attitude, they are of non-judgment, acceptance, patience, curiosity, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, letting go, gratitude, generosity, and compassion. So if we spend years meditating with an attitude of, say, impatience, so for example, every time you meditate and your mind wanders or you feel restless or bored and you condemn yourself or are impatient with the process, then you're going to be really good at being impatient. So what you practice gets stronger. So this is not only in the meditation practice, but in life in general. So just being aware of those attitudes that we bring to our practice, as well as to how we live mindfully. So today we're going to be specifically looking at the attitude of compassion, and specifically self-compassion. So what is compassion? Compassion is defined as the emotional response when perceiving suffering, and it involves an authentic desire to help. There is a recognition of another's suffering and really that motivation to alleviate that suffering. So we are moved to action. Another way of describing it is kindness in action. So I don't know about you, but when I look at that picture, I really just want to pick up that child and just give it a big hug. So what is self-compassion? Self-compassion is a way of relating to ourselves kindly, embracing ourselves as we are, flaws and all. It creates a caring space within you that is free from judgment, a place that sees your hurt and your failures and softens to allow those experiences with kindness and caring. So according to Dr. Kristen Neff, she is an expert in self-compassion, there are three components to self-compassion. Firstly, there's self-kindness. So this is treating ourselves with kindness versus harsh self-judgment. Being kind and understanding to oneself in instances of pain or perceived failure. Common humanity. How are we the same as others? Our lives are imperfect, and that is a shared human experience. Our common humanity is what connects us to others. And the third component being mindfulness, the ability to hold painful thoughts and feelings in balanced awareness. So becoming mindful, we become more aware of our mind talk and that very strong critic in our internal environment that does not seem to let up. The inner critic is the voice in our head that tells us that we're not good enough and never will be. It's a block to developing and accepting and allowing attitude to ourselves and to our environment. We often get so lost in our role of the self-critic, so identified with that part of ourselves that verbally puts us down, that we don't even notice the incredible pain that we are causing ourselves. It's the second arrow that we shoot ourselves with, causing more pain and suffering. So why do we criticize ourselves? It's been found that the top reason is that we believe we need self-criticism to motivate ourselves. That if we're too kind to ourselves, we'll be self-indulgent and lazy. And if we are not good enough, then will we be accepted by our peers and by our social group? Showing ourselves self-compassion isn't about giving ourselves permission to not show up, to let ourselves off the hook or to blame others. It is not self-pity. Self-pity is when we see suffering in ourselves and we don't do anything about it. We just feel sorry for ourselves. So think of your self-compassion voice as a wise and supportive mentor or kind friend who's encouraging you to see things clearly and in a more balanced way, to help you to remember that no one is perfect and to be kind, understanding, and accountable to yourself. So I'm now going to do a reflective exercise with you. So if you could just get a pen and paper ready so that you can answer these questions. So the first question is, consider one of your weaknesses and think of a recent example where this plays out. So write this down. So a possible weakness could be procrastination. You could be conflict avoidant. Maybe you don't look after yourself. So for example, for myself, one of my biggest weaknesses is procrastination when it comes to physical exercise and when I have to do that and when I feel that I would like to do that consistently. So that's on a daily basis. So just write down one of your weaknesses and an example. Okay. Write down what you say to yourself when you come up against that weakness using your recent example. So say, for example, at the end of the day, I haven't exercised again. The things I say to myself is, so lazy, just have no discipline or motivation. What's wrong with me? I'll never get fit. So what are those things that you say to yourself? Take a moment to write those down. And now if I can just ask you to spend a moment feeling the felt sensation of those words you are saying to yourself in your body. So for example, when I sit here and I say to myself after reflecting or thinking about not exercising, I'm so lazy, I just have no discipline. The feelings in my body, I feel a tension in my shoulders. So just read those words you've said to yourself and just notice, is anything happening in the body? Now imagine that you're talking to yourself about this weakness from a compassionate and understanding perspective. What would you say? So for example, that voice would say to me, I know this is difficult for you. You're not alone. Many people feel this way, and there are so many other areas of your life where you are disciplined. So spend a moment just imagining what that compassionate and understanding perspective, what would that say? Okay, so now if you could just spend a moment putting your hand on your heart, okay? This might feel a bit weird. Don't knock it till you tried it, just try it. But research has shown that the pressure and warmth of your hand releases oxytocin, which is a neurohormone, which makes us feel safe and calm. So actually feel the warmth and that pressure. And then again, connecting with the felt sensations of those words of love and understanding as you say them back to yourself. So for example, if I say back to myself, I know this is difficult, you're not alone. So just breathing into that feeling and reading those kind words back to yourself. Okay. So when we direct loving kindness towards ourselves, we may notice some resistance to this. This is to be expected and is perfectly okay. A lot of us have a habit of being quite hard and unfriendly to ourselves, saying things we would not even dream of saying to others. This is often a coping strategy which we've adopted in our youth in order to deal with difficult life circumstances that we found ourselves in. We don't need to blame ourselves for this because these coping strategies may have worked well for us in the past. However, we might notice that actually they're not working for us anymore. And actually these strategies have unforeseen and negative consequences for us. So going forward, you may decide that it would be a good idea to start cultivating an open friendliness to yourself, beginning to develop the habit of speaking to yourself in a warm and kind tone of voice, and remembering those attitudes of mindfulness in the process, those attitudes of patience, non-judgment, acceptance. So this is also just to be when we are being mindful in everyday living. How is it that we speak to ourselves? Sometimes we say them aloud, and sometimes we just say them internally. So what is happening in the body when we criticize ourselves? Yep, our friend, we're tapping into our threat response, the fight-flight mechanism, which I spoke to you about in length last week. Did you notice possibly when we did the exercise, when we felt into our bodies, when we said those harsh words, could there have also maybe beside the tension in the shoulders, could there have been a beating of the heart? Any of those things that are the, what happens with this when the threat response is, we tap into that threat response. So as we know, this system evolved for threats to our actual bodily self. But in modern times, the threat is not to ourselves, but to our self-concept. So when we think a thought about ourselves that we don't like, or it shows some imperfection, we feel threatened, and so we attack the problem and we attack ourselves. Once we understand that this is an evolved triggered response to make us feel safe and that it is not effective anymore, we can bring that voice of compassion to ourselves. And in doing so, we actually tap into the mammalian caregiving system. Now, what's unique about mammals is that as newborns, they enter the world entirely dependent on caregivers to tend to their every need in order to survive. So this caregiving system evolved so that the young mammals could attach closely with the mother to stay safe and to consequently to stay alive. So when the lion uses a soft purring voice and a warm and gentle touch, the cub will release oxytocin, which I said is a neurohormone, and this is linked to feelings of trust feeling soothed and calm and safe. This is the same for us. So when we put our hand on our heart and feel the warmth and the pressure of it on our body, and we use the kind, soft voice as we did in the previous exercise, there's a reduction in our cortisol levels and a release of oxytocin. When we feel safe and comforted, we are in the optimal mindset to do our best. So compassion is not only good for us, but it's also good for the world. While survival of the fittest may lead to short-term gain, research clearly shows it is survival of the kindest and compassionate that leads to long-term survival of a species. It is our ability to stand together as a group, to support each other, to help each other, to communicate for mutual understanding, and to cooperate. That has taken our species this far. We have evolved to help social groups and to protect those that are weak and those who suffer. More compassionate societies that take care of their vulnerable members, assist other nations in need, and have children who perform more acts of kindness are the happier ones. Compassionate people are more socially adept, making them less vulnerable to loneliness, which has been shown to cause stress and harms the immune system. Compassion is an instinct. It is a natural and automatic response that has ensured our survival. Our brains are hardwired for compassion. I find this extremely hopeful and comforting, especially now where we are facing so much together in the world. Maybe take a pause, doing a lot of talking, a lot of teaching. Why don't we just take a deep breath? Okay, so just to continue, how does mindfulness help us to be more compassionate? Firstly, through daily mindfulness practice and living more in the present moment, we start to become more aware of our inner critic, which then gives us the freedom of choice to respond more kindly and skillfully to these harsh voices. The insula, which is part of the neocortex, which is associated with empathy and experiencing your body as it is, begins to uncouple with the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. And that part of the cortex is associated with the narrative aspect of self. So that's language, images, and generating stories about the self. So in this uncoupling, what we see happening in the brain is the ability to activate the compassion centers without activating the stories, which often turn into overthinking and self-criticism. We reduce our levels of stress, anxiety, and self-doubt by allowing us to see these voices for what they are. They are just stories about things we fear, about not fitting in. And they are not the truth about who we are or what we're capable of. In the last few years, there's been a sharp increase in the number of research studies conducted on self-compassion. And the bottom line is that self-compassion is very strongly related to mental well-being, strongly related to less depression, less anxiety, less stress, less perfectionism. It's equally strongly related to positive states of mind, like happiness, life satisfaction, greater motivation, taking greater self-responsibility, and making healthier life choices. Self-compassion is also linked to having more sense of connectedness with others and better interpersonal relationships. It also protects us against social comparison. Think of social media and how often we tend to compare ourselves to others. Social anxiety, anger, and closed-mindedness. So I hope this encourages you to either start or continue a journey of cultivating self-compassion. I'll now be handing you over to Liz, who'll be guiding us through a loving kindness meditation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jules. Wow. Interesting to notice some of our mind talk and how subtly we can criticize ourselves, often without even realizing we're doing it. So if you need to quickly stand, take a stretch, shake it out, look out the window, do that quickly now. And you can use this break also to just jot down any insights or anything that Jules said that you want to remember. Okay, so as Julie said today, instead of introducing you to further tools, I'm going to do a longer guided meditation with you that invites you to connect with this quality of compassion that Jules has been talking about. Sometimes in life we feel really stressed. We may feel like we're suffering either in our body or in our heart or our mind. And we might just have this sense that what we really need and long for is someone to just wrap their arms around us and tell us we're going to be okay. And with self-compassion, this is something that we can offer to ourselves. So I'm going to invite you now to begin with to find a really comfortable way to arrange your body. Self-compassion is about bringing goodwill, tenderness, and kindness to our own pain, our own suffering. And this begins by offering kindness to our own body. So make sure that you're warm, make sure that you're comfortable, and then bring your awareness to focus on the breath. Just taking a few moments to connect again with the breath in the body wherever you feel it most vividly, as a way to bring our attention back into the present moment. We connect with the body because our bodies are right here, right now. And then expanding your attention to the whole body for a few moments until you feel settled. And remembering when the mind wanders, which is what our minds do, to simply acknowledge where it went, and then with kindness redirect your attention to your breath or your body. Then, when you're ready, allow some or all of the following phrases to come to mind. You may change the words if you choose to, so that they're words that connect to you, that you can resonate with, so that these become your own gateway into a deep sense of friendliness and kindness towards yourself. So the phrases are something like, may I be safe and free from suffering. May I be as happy and healthy as it is possible for me to be. May I have peace and ease of being. So taking your time, really connecting to each phrase and noticing any reaction and thoughts or feelings or bodily sensations. There's no need to judge what arises. This is for you. May I be safe and free from suffering. May I be as happy and healthy as it is possible for me to be. May I have peace and ease of being. If you find it difficult to bring forth any sense of friendship towards yourself, then bring to mind a person or even a pet who either in the past or the present has loved you unconditionally. Once you have a clear sense of their love for you, see if you can return to offering this love to yourself. May I be safe and free from suffering. May I be happy and healthy. May I have peace and ease of being. At a certain point, now bring to mind a loved one and wish them well in the same way. May they be safe and free from suffering. May they be happy and healthy. May they have peace and ease of being. Once again, see what arises in mind and body as you hold the person in mind and heart, wishing them well. Taking your time, pause between the phrases. Remember to breathe. May they be safe and free from suffering. May they be happy and healthy. May they have peace and ease of being. When you are ready, think of a stranger. This may be someone you see regularly, perhaps in the street or the supermarket, someone you recognize but may not know the name of. Acknowledge that although you do not know them, they probably also have a life full of hopes and fears as you have. They too wish to be happy as you do. So keeping them in heart and mind, repeat the phrases and wish them well. May they be safe and free from suffering. May they be happy and healthy. May they have peace and ease of being. Finally, extend loving kindness to all beings, including your loved ones and strangers, and those whom you may find difficult. The intention here is to extend love and friendship to all living beings on the planet, remembering that all living beings includes you. May all beings be safe and free from suffering. May all beings be happy and healthy. May all of us have ease of being. May we all be safe and free from suffering. May we all be happy and healthy. May all of us have ease of being. Take a moment now to sit with the breath and the body, resting in awareness of the present moment, while I share a poem with you called Meditation as an Act of Love by Bob Sharples. Don't meditate to fix yourself, to heal yourself, to improve yourself, to redeem yourself. Rather, do it as an act of love. Don't meditate to fix yourself, to heal yourself, to improve yourself, to redeem yourself. Rather, do it as an act of love, of deep, warm friendship to yourself. In this way, there is no longer any need for the subtle aggression of self-improvement, for the endless guilt of not doing enough. It offers the possibility of an end to the ceaseless round of trying so hard that wraps so many people's lives in a knot. Instead, there is now meditation as an act of love. How endlessly delightful and encouraging. Instead, there is now meditation as an act of love. How endlessly delightful and encouraging. Hopefully you have a sense of real warmth and compassion and kindness and tenderness for yourself and for all beings on our planet as we go through this rather challenging time. So we encourage you to continue using the tools that you've learned over the last 3 weeks. And we also encourage you to continue with the Frantic World app, moving on to week 3, which incorporates some mindful movement. Julie and I will be offering another 4 free 40-minute coaching sessions to those of you who haven't yet had an opportunity. And these will go to the first 4 people to contact Nkosi on Nchangase n1@ukzn.ac.za. And her email address is up on your screen if you want to make a note of that, and email her. We'll take the first 4 people, sorry, who email Nkosi, and we'll contact you about those coaching sessions. We do also encourage you to contact the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, SADAG, if your stress, anxiety, or depression feels overwhelming and you don't feel like you're coping. So part of being resilient is recognizing when you need help and having the courage to ask for it. And they're providing free telephonic counseling information, resources, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And you can call them on 0800 21 22 23. For further information, or if you would like to customize a similar course for your organization, please contact either Cindy Siwa or Vanusha, and their contact details are up on the screen now as well if you would like to speak to them. So before we move into the Q&A, we'd just like to extend a big thank you to all of you for joining us this morning. We look forward to being with those of you who are able to join us again next week, where we will be talking about connection and exploring the 4 core components of resilience through connecting with yourself and with others. So we're going to spend the next 10 minutes answering any questions that you may have. You're welcome to type those into the Q&A box or put up your hand and Sarah will manage that. And just know that if we run out of time and your question's not answered, then we will get back to you with an answer via email. I just want to read a comment from Mawetu. This was obviously when we were asking for feedback. She says, I've been with the webinar for the past 3 sessions. It has given me a feeling or sense of the world in another perspective, extremely beneficial. Thank you, Mawetu, for that feedback. So if anyone else has got questions, or if you'd like to ask us questions live, please raise your hand or write those into the Q&A.
There's just a comment from Helen in the chat box. I don't know if you want to...
Yes. Okay, I'll have a look at that. So Helen says, could you say something about the connection between mindfulness and EFT or tapping? So Helen, I know very little about EFT, so it's quite difficult to make a comment. Jules, I don't know if you've got anything to add?
No.
So the little bit that I know about tapping is that it has to do with connecting the different parts of the nervous system. And just in terms of mindfulness, one of the core qualities that we cultivate when we are practicing mindfulness meditation is a connection between the body and the mind. So very often it's like our bodies are just a vehicle to carry our minds around, and a lot of us live quite disconnected from our bodies, and mindfulness is a really helpful way of reconnecting with the body, because our bodies have so much wisdom in them, and so much that we can understand about ourselves from connecting with our bodies. So even if you think back to the reflection question that Julie asked you at the beginning, where she said, bring to mind a weakness of yours when you criticize yourself, how does that feel in the body? Often gives us quite a lot of information if we can connect with those feelings in the body. Anything you want to add, Jules?
No, that's wonderfully said. Thank you, Liz. I'm just going to put on in Kosi's, if someone has requested that. So there it is again.
So Helen's just added, it seems to me there may well be connections because you speak well over yourself as part of the tapping. Okay, thanks for that, Helen. She says you might want to look into this. I think the two can be combined. So that sounds really interesting. And yes, it sounds like it's a way of connecting affirmations, what we're saying to ourselves, a little bit like the reflection exercise that Julie did, but really connecting that with the different parts of the nervous system, connecting with the body.
I see we're getting a lot of feedback in terms of positive comments, but not really questions. So I'm just going to launch the poll in the meantime. If anyone else has any other questions, they can type them out while we're doing the poll.
Great, thanks, Sarah.
And if anyone wants to ask a question live, you're also welcome to raise your hand. But I see there is one question that's come through.
So Tim Baker says, how to start a habit and keep at it without listening to self-doubt thoughts and avoid burnouts in a process. Wow, yes. Jules, do you want to comment on that?
Okay, Tim Baker, thank you for that. So how to start a habit and keep at it while listening to self-doubt thoughts and avoid burnout in the process. Great question. Kelly McGonigal has done a lot of work with regards to self-compassion and mindfulness and willpower. So firstly, I'd recommend you looking at that work. But with anything, start small. So that really is the biggest advice I can give to you, Tim Baker, is to have that intention of, even though you're starting that new habit, again, bringing that kindness to yourself and, you know, even maybe a bit of humor. There I go again, you know, and when we start building new neural pathways of doing things differently, it does take time. Sometimes people say 21 days. I'm not too sure. Sometimes it takes longer. It depends how big and how ingrained the habit is. So really start small and reflect often and congratulate yourself, encourage yourself, and just putting the intention out there already is a great start. So and really maybe get someone that's accountability buddy, someone that even in the family, they can reflect back to you. You know, if, for example, you are saying unkind words to yourself, you go, oh, gee, I'm such an idiot. Maybe someone can gently go, you know, Mom, I'm just hearing you, you know. And so, yes, so it's the intention, first of all. Put up reminders wherever you can. Remember to do this and start small. Thanks, Tim Baker.
Thanks, Jules. So Margot Friedman's asking to put up how to get the app again. So if you don't mind switching to that slide.
Yes, of course, I will do that.
And it's in the App Store, I think on both the Samsung phones, what is that called? And also on
so you just go into the App Store
and search
and you'll see that icon. So just put in mindfulness, finding peace, and you'll see that app. And
we've also got a question from Helen. She says, I felt my heart go cold at some point. Would it be part of resisting the self-compassion? So I think, Helen, what often happens is that we build up defenses to protect ourselves, and softening our heart, which is part of self-compassion, can feel quite threatening, because we may have taken on the belief that in order to cope with life, in order to keep ourselves going, we have to harden our hearts. We may have been hurt in the past, and that can cause us to be very resistant to feeling compassion. And there's often a belief, and I think this is supported by sort of culture and society, that if we are compassionate, we're not going to achieve anything. Then we'll just become, so in other words, we mustn't be too soft on ourselves. We've got to have a little bit of we've got to push ourselves a little bit in order to achieve what we want to achieve. So it may be that coldness you felt was some resistance to having compassion and kindness for yourself. And it can be something that we are not used to doing. So even just from a habit point of view, it might feel uncomfortable because it's something different. Jules, do you want to add anything?
Oh, no, that's lovely. Thank you, Liz.
Nikki has shared a lovely confession. She says, as a not so secret confession, I'm so enjoying staying in my pajamas during this lockdown session, especially as it's colder. The biggest benefit I receive is the comfort I feel from the soft and comforting textures that I'm wrapped in. P.S. I do change my pajamas every night. Thanks for that, Nikki. And that's a beautiful example of just bringing some self-compassion to yourself and allowing yourself to enjoy the comfort of being in pajamas as we here in lockdown.
I see Nikki's also added, can we move to a permanent work in our pajamas when lockdown ends? There may be a new fashion coming. Watch the space. So. Slippers and pajamas.
Helen's asked us to write out the name of the lady you mentioned, McGonagall. Is that?
Yes.
And it's.
Yes. I will do that.
She's got some lovely TED Talks. Kelly McGonigal. There it is in the chat, Helen.
She has a lovely new book out, The Joy of Movement,
nice.
Which talks a lot about the willpower and the kindness and how we can increase our willpower through self-compassion.
Okay, thanks, ladies. I think we've got, I think all our questions have come through. So thank you again for sharing with us today. And I hope that everyone can take this home with us and help us to be less stressed, especially as lockdown eases. And we are looking forward to your final part next week. And I think the following week, we're going to miss you guys. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have to come back and rewatch your videos. So thank you for all the valuable information you've shared with us. So the videos and the slides will be available on the UEL website. So we'll probably send this out this afternoon as soon as it's ready. So thank you for everyone for joining us today, and do take note of the upcoming webinars that are on the screen now, and do RSVP to secure your place. So this week on Thursday, we have a session on health and well-being and the role of nutrition and lifestyle during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. And this will speak a lot about returning to the workplace and children returning to school. And then next week, Liz and Julie will be joining us for their final part on resilience through mindfulness, part 4, connection. Yeah, so we also are planning a few more webinars. So do take a look at and keep checking our website. As soon as we have finalized them, we will post them there. So we also have a few online courses that we're offering for free during the lockdown period. So we're sharing our own courses as well as partnering with other organizations in order to provide free access. So please visit our website, www.ukznextendedlearning.com, to see what we have on offer, and this should be under the free courses tab. Otherwise, we hope that you enjoyed the session. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.